So today we're going to talk about all the books I read in September, and I'm proud of myself, guys. I read 7 books in September, and if you don't know, that is amazing for me. As a slow reader, that is very impressive. Just for context, that is the best reading month I've had in 4 years, and 7 books is probably like the most I've ever read in a month. I think my best reading month was 7 books 4 years ago. So I'm pretty impressed with myself, and maybe I can call myself a reader again, who knows. So anyway, I'm going to talk about all the books I read this month, and I'm going to rank it. I'm going to rank it from my least favourite to my favourite book of the month. So yeah, let's get into it. So the book that I enjoyed, actually, I had a very fun time with. I ended up rating it around 2.5 stars. If we're going to rate this book based on how quickly I read it or how enjoyable I found it whilst I was reading it, it would probably be a 5 stars. But I was so annoyed at the ending. I had problems with this book. I ended up rating it about 2.5 stars, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Now, don't get me wrong, I binge read this book, and binge reading is just, I don't binge read, guys. And this is literally my first thriller. So I think as a starting off point, this was so good because I read it like literally within a day. I, for the most part, enjoyed this whilst I was reading it. Like, I just needed to know what happened and what the conclusion was. And the chapters are all so short that it's very bingeable. Like, a lot of these chapters are like 1 page. So it was very bingeable. My main beef with this book was the fact, well, first of all, this is a problem that I don't know a lot of people have with this book, and that's the psychology in this. A murder happens at the start of this book where this woman murders her husband. It's a really horrible scene, like she shot him 7 times or something crazy like that. We're following this psychologist who desperately wants to work on the woman who killed her husband because he thinks he can help her, and breaks all sorts of ethical boundaries trying to become this woman's psychologist. And once he does, he breaks so many more boundaries. And I just thought this was hard to read from a psychology perspective because I did psychology at uni. Maybe that's why I had a problem with it. I couldn't see past the fake psychology of it, and I think that's what kept on taking me out of the story. But then towards the end, I just did not like the conclusion. I kind of saw the twist coming, and then when it did come, it wasn't as satisfying, and I didn't understand the motivation behind it. Didn't make sense to me. So that's why this book was a miss for me specifically. I would be open to reading another Alex Michaelides because the way he writes is so bingeable. I just don't like, I can't do another psychologist. Like, I feel like if you're gonna write from the perspective of a psychologist, you need to do your research. Then the next 2 books I would rate pretty similarly, and they're both in the similar YA fantasy space. So I'll start off with City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab, and this is my first ever V.E. Schwab. And I thought this was like, it was such a quick read, and it was a fun read to get me into the autumn spooky season, but it was just that, like, it was, I think maybe I would have enjoyed it if I was a lot younger. Like, this is like a middle grade fantasy book. I didn't find the main character that interesting. Yeah, it's not unexpected that I thought this was a 3 stars, but I did find it fun, like a really fun concept. It's basically this girl who could see ghosts. She can like switch into like the ghost realm, and she has a ghost best friend, and it was really fun, and I definitely think that if I was younger I would have really enjoyed this. But yeah, 3 stars. It's going to get increasingly dark as this video goes on, and I apologise in advance. The next book I read, which was a similar 3 stars, was Shatter Me by Tahira Murphy. I read this in my 24-hour reading vlog, so a lot of my fresh thoughts are in that video, but overall, I think that this was like a pleasant surprise. So I've read another Tahira Murphy before called A Very Large Expanse of Sea, and that one is like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't enjoy the Muslim representation in that. But this book, it was a fun time. It was basically set in this dystopian world where this girl, her touch has the power to kill people. We're starting off and we're in our main character Juliet's head. She's in a prison, she's going crazy, she hasn't had human contact in ages. I think the last time someone touched her, they died. So she's so lonely, going like stir crazy in this prison, and then she meets this guy and he befriends her. They basically have a romance, and it's cute until it's not. Like, I think that at first I was like, ooh, the yearning, the tension between them was great because of the whole no touch thing, and then things moved too quickly. And then Aaron Warner, I'm very disappointed by him. Maybe he gets a lot better in like later books, but in this book he was just a caricature villain. But it was very bingeable. I read this in like less than a day. That doesn't happen for me, so I need to do 24-hour reading vlogs more often because this was so much fun to binge. I'm not going to continue with this series, but I would read Tahira Murphy's more recent books, like the Woven Kingdom books, because I've heard so much about that, and I can see the potential of the writing in this book, so I can only imagine how much better she's gotten in recent times. The next book that I read, going in order of how much I enjoyed it, is the Dungeon Crawler Carl first book. and I listened to this via audiobook. So this book only came onto my radar like a few months ago. All of a sudden I kept on seeing it like all over BookTube, and a lot of my favourite booktubers with similar taste to me were recommending it, basically saying that the first book is good, but you have to get to book 2 because apparently that's where it gets really good. And I will say that I think that if I wasn't listening to the audiobook of this, I think I would have been a lot more bored and I wouldn't have the patience to continue. But the audiobook was so good. Like, the audio narrator did so many different voices that I genuinely thought that it was like a multicast audiobook for a while, until I literally looked up the narrator and saw it was just one guy. So Jeff Hayes, good job. We're following this guy called Carl, and right at the start of the book he's looking after his ex-girlfriend's cat, and his cat jumps out the window in the middle of the night. It's winter. He has to go get the cat. He jumps out the window to go get the cat. Bear in mind, he's literally just wearing a t-shirt and his girlfriend's like 2 small Crocs. And then all of a sudden every single building in the world is vaporized. So every person who's indoors when this happens is dead. So anyone who happened to be outside in the blistering cold in the middle of the night are the only people who survived. And all of a sudden there's this big announcement that goes all across the world. It tells everyone who's still alive, either they can try and like brave the cold and like stay alive by themselves on Earth, or they can go through these portals and it takes them into these dungeons where they're entered into a universe-wide game show where they have to survive and like play multiple games, and they get points, and it's like a proper RPG game. So he's like, obviously I'm not going to stay out in the cold by myself, I'm going to die. So he takes the cat, Princess Donut, and goes into one of these portals, and then from then on it's literally an RPG game. Again, like if I wasn't listening on audiobook, I think I would have been a lot more bored then. Like, it's literally like, imagine someone's playing an RPG game and you're sitting next to them watching them play the game. Like, it was like a middle level of entertainment. But then as the book goes on, Princess Donut is exactly the diva that I thought she was. She gets upgraded and she can talk. Like, the banter between him and Princess Donut is so fun. People all over the universe are watching, almost like Hunger Games, where like the capital is watching and people pick their favourite players and then they can give them points and send them gifts and things like that. So you have to gain popularity. They end up getting popular enough to get a PR agent. It's just so silly. Even talking about it out loud right now, it just sounds ridiculous, but it was so fun. I do think that it was a little bit slow. Like, it was a big book. If I wasn't listening on audiobook, I don't know if I would have had the attention span to finish the entire book, but as an audiobook I absolutely loved it, and I think I'll be continuing the series, or at least the next book. I think that if the second book isn't significantly better than the first book, then I don't know if I'd continue the series, but I've heard that the second book is, so I'm definitely going to trust the process here and read the second book. But if you've read this book, let me know, and let me know when in the series you were sold on the books. And then the next book I'm going to talk about is 40s and Funeral, and I thought this was really fun. Like, I listened to the audiobook of this. It's basically these 2 best friends who were best friends growing up. It follows them throughout 4 Eids and a funeral. Basically, their hometown librarian, who they were both really close with, dies, and basically something happened between them where they stopped talking. He went to like a private school, she stayed in their hometown, and then he comes back for that funeral. They haven't been speaking for a year, we don't really know what happened. I just thought it was a really fun time, and I gave it 4 stars. It was fun, they had good chemistry. It's really interesting seeing like so both of these authors are from Nigerian and Bengali backgrounds, I want to say. Hearing those 2 perspectives of like being a Muslim from those 2 different communities was so like such an interesting perspective. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was really fun. The next book up from that is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I also read this in my 24-hour readathon. I binged this and I just thought this was so much fun. All of a sudden I'm picking up thrillers, guys. I've never read a thriller before, and this month I've read 2 thrillers. Like, who am I? So I thought the first half of this book was fun. I thought it was so silly, like being in the main girl's head. Basically, we're following this girl who has been out of prison for a year. We don't know what she did, but she's been there for the last 10 years of her life. She's struggling to find a job. She's living in her car, and then she interviews for this housemaid position in this rich woman's house. And it basically means she's going to be looking after the house, babysitting the daughter, and it's a live-in position. And when the girl interviews for the job, she shows her the room that she's going to be staying in, and it's this creepy room at the top of the house. Even though the whole house is like very bougie, very expensive, that room is very creepy. It's like a little dungeon upstairs, and it locks from the outside. And the girl found that really creepy when she saw it, but she was like, ah. And this is like part of the girl's charm. I thought she was so ridiculous and so fun to be in her head. Like, the first half of this book reads like, I keep comparing it to Devious Maids, which is this like really dramatic show about these women, these maids that are working in these really rich houses, and they see some crazy stuff. So the first half of this book is just drama after drama after drama. Like, I laughed out loud multiple times, and then suddenly like it shifts and it gets really dark towards the like last half of the book, and I thought it was really fun. I don't think it was anything like groundbreaking, but I really enjoyed this book from beginning to end. Like, I wasn't bored at any point. I thought the main character was so messy. I thought the villain's motivations made sense, and I like it when the villain has a bit more depth. Okay, last book. We're almost at the end, guys, and it's almost completely dark outside. My only 5-star read of the month and my favourite book of the month was And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Bachman. This is my first Frederick book. He wrote Anxious People and Bear Town and all of these really popular books. We're following this old man who is talking to his grandson about life, and essentially he's got dementia, and throughout the book he's forgetting more and more. He's aware that he's losing his memories as he's speaking to his grandson, and his grandson keeps like pulling him back, and he keeps going back into his memories of his wife who died and his relationship with his son, and he's like reflecting on life, and it's such a beautiful book. It's literally 60 pages long, and I, again, as a slow reader, reading in one sitting books, that's non-existent to me, but this book was 60 pages, and I remember I sat here and I was up until like 1 in the morning reading this book. Guys, I sobbed. Like, I was a mess when I was reading this book. It isn't even like sad to be sad kind of thing. It's just beautiful. Like, it's just beautiful. Especially when you have a loved one who's gone through this. It's just, it hit, like, this book just hit home, and it was so beautifully written, and his like observations about life and the love of his life and his relationship with his son and how he wished he'd done things differently, and his relationship with his grandson was so beautiful. And I just highly recommend this book because it was incredible, and now I want to read everything this man has ever written. Anyway, that is everything that I read this month. I had a really diverse reading month. I read thrillers, I read fantasy, I read sci-fi, I read general fiction, I read romance. I read a lot of genres, and this was a great reading month, and I genuinely feel like my love for reading is being revived, and I love that for me. I hope that October is just as good of a reading month. I definitely won't be reading 7 books in October, but I'm really excited about the books I'm going to be reading. So anyway, let me know what your favourite books of September were, and if you have any recommendations for me, let me know, and I'll see you next time.